Welcome to 24 Hours of PaaS Cross-Platform SQL Server Management. We are excited you could join us today for Swagatika Sangari's session, Master Data Management Metrics. This 24 Hours of PaaS event consists of 24 consecutive live webinars delivered by expert speakers from the PaaS community. The session will be recorded and posted online after the event. You will receive an email letting you know when the recordings are available. My name is Miguel Angel Granados, and I am the Mexico City local group leader. I have a few introductory slides before I hand over the reins of Swagatika. Next, please. Next. Thank you. If you require technical assistance, please type your questions in the question pane located on the right side of your screen, and someone will assist you. This question pane is also where you may ask any questions throughout the presentation. Feel free to enter your questions at any time, and once we get to the questions and answer portion of the session, I'll read your questions aloud to the speaker. You are able to zoom in on the presentation content by using the zoom button located on the top of the presentation window. Please note that there will be a short evaluation at the end of the session. Your feedback is important to us, so please take a moment to complete it. This will pop up after the webinar ends in your web browser. I'd like to take a moment to thank our presentation sponsors, Microsoft, Quest, Idera, and SentryOne, supporting sponsor, Redgate. The starting of 24 hours of PaaS would not be possible without their generous support, and they are reasons this event is available free of charge. If you would like to learn more about our sponsors and sign up for information on how they can help you, please visit the sponsors page of the 24 Hours of PaaS website. Next, please. PaaS Summit is the PaaS community flagship event, and it is happening November 6, 9 in Seattle, Washington. PaaS Summit is the largest conference for technical professionals who leverage the Microsoft Data Platform. Immerse yourself in deep dive technical sessions, learn best practices, and discover new tips and tricks. Also make new friends. For more information and to register, visit paassummit.com. Next, please. Now I'm going to introduce you Swagatika Sangari. This 24 Hours of PaaS sessions is presented by Swagatika Sangari. Swagatika has had nearly a decade of experience in leading data governance, master data, and data quality. She also has extensive experience with developing effective business roadmaps and business models across e-commerce, business to business, to customer, with major focus on ineffectively evaluating and aligning business intelligence analytics and data warehousing with the appropriate KPIs. Now, Gatika is going to present you. Please, next.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Miguel, for a great trial on trying to pronunciate my name. I go by Jazz. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning at whatever part of the world are you in right now. So today's session is about master data management metrics. I gave a presentation about master data management and visualization effort in Power BI at the early part of the day, and this is a follow-up after that. I have been receiving a lot of questions about what all metrics we should be looking at in terms of multi-domain MDM delivery. particularly when you're dealing with really larger set of master data in your organization. And from there, the thought pattern was, well, if you have any self-service BI as a downstream, or if you are using any self-service BI at the same label as your master data management, at that time, you need to be aware of a couple of points about which DBAs or domain-based attributes to reuse all across the models rather than creating multiple attributes, enhancing your data size. You can leverage so well if you know your metrics enough. So from there, this is my abstract, which is talking about data conceptualization, and that's a very heavily used word in MDM world, along with single version of the truth, golden record, models, entities, attributes, members, and henceforth the list can just go on and on. Either you're in Informatica MDM world, IBM MDM world, or any other company's MDM world, the terms do remain the same all across. So this is a Microsoft platform, and we are focusing on master data services. Um, we are not necessarily going to be talking about the reports or the Power BI visualization or assigning Cortana to any of the MDM report per se, as I was trying to deliver that in my previous demonstration. But we are definitely going to be talking about the basics of MDM and do a little bit of demo on MDM Web UI, and then talk about other metrics that you should be looking at when you're trying to decide if you want to have an MDM project in your company right now or not. All right. Many of you might be familiar with this face. He is a great mentor of mine. I was talking about Ralph Kimball, the father of data warehouse, in my previous presentation. If you have attended my past summit talk last year, you might know that I'm a great fan of someone from the EDW world. But hey, I changed my style this time because I've been reading a lot of books of him this time, and I am just such a great fan of what Black Swan theory is all about, and I'm trying to align that Black Swan theory to my data world. So hello, Nassim Nicholas Taleb. This is from his book Anti-Fragility as well as Black Swan. He does talk about remember that you're a black swan, and the name and that particular line defines it all. That you're trying to predict something in a whole unpredictable world, and you are so much into your predictability and looking at the patterns that sometimes you miss out on the outliers, and that outlier is going to come back at you at some point in the future. And that's the whole pattern of the story. And his book has tons of use cases about the medicine field as well as economics data points as well. So why am I bringing this up is because whenever we are doing an MDM project, we think about, well, address line 1, address line 2, city, state, zip code. Well, I'm going to create a location master, and then I'm going to push all of these attributes in there. I'm doing any tax master data delivery. I'm just gonna look at EBITDA. I'm gonna look at something financial related attributes, and then I'm gonna push them into that particular model. So what happens out of this unpredictability or your lack of predicting the data well, be it a centralized or decentralized platform? These days we are all about, or the hot market with the Bitcoin is all about decentralized, but be it any of this platform, centralized or decentralized, you have to be shrewd enough to understand there are outliers in any kind of data delivery you're doing, master data, transactional data, reference data, or analytical data, and you need to find that pattern from the unpredictability itself. So hence goes choosing your DBAs really in a smart way, so that you're not creating thousands of attributes in each and every domain, and many other use cases that we will talk in this presentation. So hats off to this guy and all of his books that has been helping me a lot to reflect in my IT life as well, and not just in a philosophical way. What will we do in this particular demonstration? we are going to talk about various use cases of MDM models, and then we are going to talk about the outcome of any of the MDM project that you have, which is subscription views and the types of it. Some of the information in the session is going to overlap with what I talked in my previous demonstration, and that's because of the nature of master data services. It's just a product that happens to be underused in the BI platform, I should say. And not many companies are doing master data services. They always try to think about the budget, and the talk of about MDM can just go on and on. And as I always say, this is not a product project. This is a people project, because every time there is a master data, there comes the ownership, and there comes the business user approval teams, and like facilitating that process where you're letting people or the executive leadership to understand what a master data is. And hence I'll be overlapping with my information that I had shared in my previous demo. And then we will talk about the capabilities of MDS, and we will talk about use cases of choosing a right metrics. And that slide is something very close to my heart. Alrighty, before we go ahead, mainstream the topic, which is metrics, I wanted to give a background to this talk and talk about how many ways we can interact in master data services. As many of you have been using this product, it has a web UI, which requires Silverlight, and Excel sheet, which requires a 64-bit version. And then, of course, you need to have the MDM Web UI launched in an IE7 or more version platform. So the terms like, as we talked, single version of the truth, well enough, Ralph Kimball started this term long ago in the EDW platform, but it happens to be so mainstream in master data world. So the other synonym for this is golden record. What do you mean by that? So every time you have a lot of multiple values for the same set of key, or the unique key that you have, in those cases you perform some deduplication via any of the data quality tool, and then you analyze, and then you find out with the trust validation score or any of the business stewards help that this particular data is my master data, and that is the original one. Be it your Jaro-Winkler algorithm, which I have been using a lot with MDS, but just because of the fact that the QS is dead, or be it any of the SSIS fuzzy logic that you're doing, the ultimate goal in this particular case is try to find a single version of the truth, or the golden record. And remember, master data services is always done for the dimension members. We're not talking about any of the facts. So I just wanted to make sure that we are aware of the differences among these four types of data type, which is master, transactional, reference, and analytical. Just want to focus on one point, that reference data could be any of the ISO table, International Standard Organization table, be it your language or your state or your country codes, which is provided via a third party ISO tables, and they have been certified for providing those kind of data. And you don't have to look for any of the cleansing in those ISO tables, just because of the fact that the third party team takes the complete ownership of that. But I have had cases where I'm consuming ISO tables with wrong values in it, because the country, that there is a new state in the country and stuff like that always comes up. Not to be sidetracked, I'm going to jump into the second part, which is bulk insertion option, or loading data to your master data services model. It can be performed via various ways. If your project has gone live, you can do 1 or 2 rows of CRUD operation at your MDM web UI itself. But most of the time, it is not your DML statement at your SQL server, but it is your incremental package, regular SOD type or slowly changing dimension type 2 implementation logic at your SSIS end, which makes it helpful, because if you're trying to design a pre-staging architecture right before you're pushing your data to your leaf tables, as well as your subscription views. You can always separate your packages, and hey, master data size is always less. So you don't have to create like really 500 or 600 plus SSIS packages. If you're creating 20 or 30 and you're segregating your master data models well, and trying to reuse the metrics among product model or customer model or location model, you are good to go with really less number of SSIS packages with a better logic in it. So that should be fine. And in the third case I wanted to talk about is Excel add-in. Just like 64-bit Excel is the requirement for this demo or any of the master data services project you're leading. And just make sure that you are creating your model at the MDM web UI. Anything which is lower than that particular, which is your entities, attributes, members, all of them can be created via the Excel sheet. Again, there is a very good tabular presentation about all of these three sections, talking about what are the capability. Can you create a model, entity, attribute, member in web UI versus SSIS package versus your Excel add-in. So you can download that from internet if you are interested, or I can share that link later on. Reach out to me. Perfect. So we're going to talk about Gartner. And I'm trying to minimize the segregation between various MDM market products, if you want to say. So SAP MDM or IBM Talent or Informatica MDM or any of this world. I have seen those live previously, and the best thing about having seen multiple MDM products in my career is you tend to relate the terms across the MDM world in an easy way. So what I'm trying to say is, if you're trying to grab any of the MDM white paper over internet, you know what you're talking about in terms of your data governance best practices, particularly for master data. You need to have your reference table, you need to have your DBAs used all across, and that stays the same for Informatica world as well. You need to have a pre-staging layer, staging layer, and in case of Informatica world, you have to have your business objects, and it just that thin layer of differentiation per the product or the tool design. In our case, Microsoft folks did really easy in this MDM design. The website does talk about two sections. It doesn't have a lot of staging or complicated architecture involved in it, other than the differentiation between the MDM system table and its association with the subscription views versus your leaf table. So you need to be a little smart about how the data is flowing. And you can find those data flow diagrams well enough on MSDN website, as well as if you can grab any of the MDM papers previously uploaded from my talks, that they do talk about the data flow in an easy way too. But yes, so what are you trying to achieve in your data governance project? Remember, MDM is just a small part of your data governance. You need to roll up a little bit when you're trying to identify the metrics that are falling under your master data management. So what are those other roll-up talks, right? So you need to know your data quality tool that exists in your team. You need to know how many teams are cross-functional all across. You need to know what other tools are being used in your organization right now. Are you using SAP? Are you using Informatica? Or is some team is completely AWS and right now you are in Microsoft BI? How would you take data? So the integration is a big talk when you're talking about doing an MDM project, because of the nature of the MDS tool. It is raw and the integration is not quite sophisticated. But defining any other MDM project does require having a conversation about infrastructure, having a conversation about recognizing your data owner, even though they say that I am not the owner, and that kind of people talk is just gonna continue on and on, right? All right, so I think you've got an idea about this. I can just talk about it all of my life because it really does take 2-3 months minimum to get all of the people into the same table just to convince on the fact that your company needs a MDM project. And be it any of the tool, I'm not biased here, but this is double the effort than you're actually doing the development work for your MDM project. So just wanted to call that out. This is the slide that I was talking about, and I'm facing most of it in my current multi-domain MDM effort. At my company, I work for Epic. It's a legal company, which is a little bit of background why I want to relate to my work is because Epic is a company which is kind of bunches of lawyers, and then there is an IT department, and they are working on taking data breach cases as well as mass tort cases and something that has gone wrong in the medical field. So say, for example, Dr. Fata, if you want to look that up, FATA, US versus Dr. Fata, a doctor who was charging a lot of money for falsely identifying people with carcinogenic cells. And so he was charging a lot of chemotherapy money and other stuff, and Epic seemed to win this particular case back in the 90s. So this is one of the heavily secured environment for us, on top of cases like Equifax, Facebook, Deloitte data breach, or any other data breach cases. So yeah, so the reason I'm bringing it up is because you have around 1,268 plus cases, out of which 80% of your client is very secured because of the healthcare domain data as well as the financial domain data. And if you're trying to deliver a master data management solution for the companies which are heavily secured, or the clients which are heavily secured, it gets a little bit tougher in terms of providing a homogenized solution for your metric standpoint. So if I want to grab the location model for, or the location data for each and every of these 1,268 cases, that's not going to happen. Like most of the cases are going to come back at me and say me that my location with the people who were affected and paid a lot of money for their chemotherapy process, they're not going to share the data because they're panicking right now, and other stuff might come up for other kind of projects as well, other kind of clients as well. So where I was going with that is try to align the most as you can in terms of your data alignment. But if it is not happening because the tool doesn't support a really larger set of models all across, all you can do is create various subscription views from each and every model, or the cases in my case, or the claimants, and then try to join those subscription views. So basically, you're doing a master data management implementation in your MDS for each and every case separately, and then you're trying to gain a subscription view, which is, let's say, slowly changing dimension type 2, and then you're joining that to provide a whole one version of the master data management, and that can only be consumed by someone internal, because that subscription view might have something security related issue, and that may contain more than one claimants or case in my case. So it is, when I'm talking about master data management metrics and homogenizing the process, or associating that with Power BI, remember that it is just for the internal use if you're a secured environment. In my case, I cannot advise my company people to share one subscription view all across. So I feel like that's a good layer to this conversation. We can get started with the data metrics that lead to multiple MDM model domain experience. And where I was going with this particular data metrics is just this. That you are going granular when you're talking about metrics, no matter how heterogeneous your data is. It might take 2 months, might take 6 months, but knowing your data for each and every cases for your company, which is dealing with the clients for past 10 years, it does require a heavy requirement gathering. And as I was going back to the previous statement, that master data management project or the metrics decision might take more, triple or maybe 10 times more the time than your development work, as it's a people project. Second one is about financial metrics. So things like EBITDA or any other financial related data, someone's cost center ID, someone's account number, social security number, and stuff like that. You need to know where you're putting it, or how creating a domain-based attribute all across your financial cases for your claimants is going to stay in one table. So these are vulnerable data, and when you're deciding your tax rates for each and every claimants, what am I saying? Claimants. In those cases, it just varies a lot. So I can give one real-time example in my company that we have a certain amount of charges associated with the case. Again, one case, when we are trying to give their money back, that might charge us $5. For the same work, the other case might charge us $10. So you cannot put the process, because the cost is broken down into so many smaller parts. It just makes things complicated. So we decided to put that out of the model right now and have it presented later on in other reporting format. So you need to know that thin layer of differences between having a data type versus a sub data type, or that is leading up to the calculation of that particular data type. Again, tax rates or tax values by nature, they're defining themselves as transactional data, but it is not a transactional data when you're trying to consolidate the tax fields, all of the upper layer of attributes, into a master data management model, saying it as financial master data. So this is confusing when people start with trying to understand, well, that data or that attribute cannot be by master data because it changes a lot over the period of time, and that's not the definition of that. So it's very use case related. You have to get your hands dirty before you're trying to define master data management to your folks who are not IT related, right? So the third point I was going with this was the performance metrics, who all are benefited from my MDM implementation. It goes back to the talk about what's my data size. Let's say you're a consultant and you're hired, and on the first day, you are here to do your MDM project, and you should be asking the regular questions like, what's my data size, and how many years of data we have, and then how can we segregate all of this data which are residing, and then address line 2 is in address line 3, city is in zip code value, and stuff like that. Can you do a better data quality with the dead product, or with the fuzzy logic, or with a Jaro Winkler, and things like that. In our case, we are trying to provide a 89.99%, that's what came up the other day, to provide a better data quality via Jara Winkler. But there has been many cases when we find data quality is so mismatched, you just cannot perform a MDM project on top of that, because data quality is everything to an MDM project. And so you have to push that data back to the client, saying that we cannot work on it, even though your company has paid for that client, right? It's just not realistic, and that's all I'm saying. So the fourth point is about technical metrics, which is talking about cross-referencing system. Let's take one example. If 80% of your teams all across your company are using Excel sheet well enough, it's easy to do an MDM project on top of MDS. But when you're talking about technical metrics, as I told previously, that you have AWS, you have SAP, and you have Informatica, or you have some other ETL tool, you have Alteryx, and for better data quality in other teams, and things like that does complicate for providing a solution like MDS itself, because API capabilities are not so good, and all you're providing is a raw UI. But if you're residing 100% or more than 90% in an Excel sheet, and your data size is almost equal to 10 gig, then go ahead, do a MDS implementation only if you're residing in SQL Server as your data warehouse right now. And that's the easiest solution without investing $1 in there. The next one I was talking about the customer metrics, how user friendly my tool is. I have had situations, and it doesn't hurt me to repeat this particular scenario in each and every talk of mine because it's just so funny. You go and you have done your MDM project implementation. You go ahead and give a 2 weeks or 3 weeks worth of training to your other team members who are a consumer of your master data management project. And then finally, they'll come back to you and ask you, where is my Excel sheet? Right? And that's exactly when you think about, really, is this tool that not user friendly? Is this completely abracadabra to my business users or people who are not tech savvy? So you need to understand that difference, like need to understand the mind of people better and know your organization better, how many years of data they have, and it all just accumulates. As a consultant, it is just not about product, it is just not about technology, it is about what language people are speaking in your building right now. It is about what kind of clients are coming in and what kind of ownership they're taking on top of their bad data quality. And so it all rolls up to one project, master data management. You don't have to think a lot for, let's say, EDW or let's say any other data lake project that you're doing. But for master data management projects, these metrics come in a heavy format. So you need to be aware of your game well. And then the final one is about reporting benefits that allows for multiple reporting tools, integrate with MDM and provide a better way of visualization. Where I was going with that was, yes, you can do Power BI with MDS, definitely. But have you had done this before? Or if you want to do a survey around US, United States only, and ask how many IT companies are right now doing an integration with integration between Power BI and master data services. I'm betting mostly 0.01%. This happens to be my organization that we are trying to do this completely out of the box solution, right? And so you need to know about if I am trying to give a visualization for my developers on top of what type of subscription view we have and what types of multi-domain MDM I am implementing, and does that reporting benefit to my data stewards? And oh, by the way, I'm not talking about reporting benefits for the business users or for the executive leadership team. I'm talking about, does the reporting benefit or the better way of analyzing data via reporting structure comes in handy for the developers or the BAs or the product owners? So yes, so with this, let's move on to next slide. Perfect. I was going to talk about a tough economy versus a growth economy. And where does this come out is when you're dealing with really 20 years of data and from World War II time, right? And you happen to archive all of this data sometimes, but then again, your company is like trying to do how they are doing since the company was established. And hey, look what they found. They have not archived all of this data and they're still residing in DW0002. And your just data warehouse numbers have gone like really 200, and you're trying to move your server from Kansas City to Las Vegas to Beaverton, Oregon, right? So in all of these cases, you need to know, is growth hurting my company? Actually, no, because we have our data is just not consolidated. It's across like thousands and thousands of data warehouse. It is just not well composed or well segregated in terms of its data type. And so I was coming from a standpoint where I'm supporting a growth economy rather than avoiding tough economy. So I'm not opposing tough economy. I am supporting that, but I'm going more towards the growth economy because being a data person, all we care is about, like, look at the patterns where the company is heading and what all predictability can we gain out of all this unpredictability or the data that has been residing that people have no clue about, right? And when we are talking about top economy, you're using a product which does not cost you. I'm talking about master data services. You can have multiple models if you're residing on SQL Server. So a couple points that arise in this case is that trying to identify the foreign keys association, trying to provide a better ER model in this case, and MDM uses a term called DBAs, domain-based attribute. So you don't have to you can avoid the using of the various keys all across your models. But in our case, of the companies like my original ones, it has been a challenge to understand at what point my location model is going to overlap with my product model, right? So basically, all of this analysis that you're doing in terms of trying to know your scalability, trying to know your connection or the alignment or data overlapping, it just takes really more than 2-3 months of requirement gathering than the development time. And I cannot emphasize on that particular line more. Great. So we're going to talk about metadata catalog or DBAs of master data services. And this is where exactly I was going at, that you have a product subcategory ID, and then you have a product category ID. Which one am I going to reuse across the product master as well as the product category? And this diagram is not necessarily the right diagram, I would say, but if you're trying to create something product related ones, make sure you do not have other tables such as product subcategory, product category. Put it all in one table, and one entity table will suffice all of the product related data. So you don't have to complicate your ER diagram a lot, which is not conventional in case of any other EDW project. And this looks valid for other tools, but when you're considering master data project, your goal is to minimize or make it as simple as possible so that you can create better subscription views on top of it, rather than having to do a left join, outer join, inner join on top of tables like master, subcategory, category, color table, row table, and blah blah, right? And if you have any question in terms of how to design well for particular one set of master data, let's say product one, I can answer that right away. But if you have questions which are complicated in terms of which DBA I should be reusing in product model, as well as location model, as well as your HR model, right? In those cases, you need to analyze your data well, and it takes a really huge amount of effort in terms of deciding a better DBA. And that's all I can say at this point. So I wanted to talk about MDM or MDS Web UI a little bit. So let's jump into the Web UI here. All right, I was having some problem when I was trying to display my Power BI data that I was creating from my dummy data. I wasn't allowed to use my legal services company data set. I am trying to get that for my future presentation. And that's going to be heck of a presentation in terms of finding the visualization on top of your various models. So super excited about that. All right, so what is the MDS Web UI, right? It's as simple as it is. It has two sections, a data task and admin task. Most of your business users are going to reside in your Explorer section, which will allow you to filter through data well and perform any of the CRUD operations once your project has gone live, and apply business rules, apply any of the hierarchy as well. So I am looking at my Explorer section where I have my address entity, and you can go ahead, select multiple entities under that domain. I happen to have just one. And then you can create your entity dependencies in between two entities inside one model. So this makes things easier when you're trying to provide a really huge interconnected ER diagram onto one page of master data domain. And then best things with your MDS 2016 is you can enable your change data capture feature in your system administration, and you can add your annotation in this particular field, which will allow business users only to see and track all the history other than the slowly changing dimension type 2 one. So there are basically three ways that you can capture the historical information or any changes made to that particular record, combining the effort of the MDM web UI and your SQL Server end as well, and while creating the subscription view. So well enough, and that this is not a MDS 101 session. This is about metrics, so mostly business use cases. I'll smoothly jump from one to another section and make it quick. So the next section is just about installing your Excel plugin from your master data services website. And then let's jump into the admin task. What all you can do in a system administration. Oftentimes, people get confused in terms of the capability of creation of your model, entity, attributes, members. So do you want to create that in your SSIS package or SQL Server or via your MDM Web UI? You need to make sure that model cannot be created anywhere else, and you have to identify how you're segregating your data. Again, rolls up to your conversation about what all business use cases I am considering at this point in terms of providing a better master data management domain. So once you select that, you will see your entities, and once you select the entities, you will be able to see the attributes associated with that. But the attribute values are always populated in the Explorer section. Again, you can edit an entity here, and this is where you can create your primary keys. If you're doing create code values automatically, MDM provides two system columns, name and code. And code is particularly the primary key for the system end. And you have to be careful when you're building a subscription view on top of this model and trying to use code as your primary key in that subscription view. It is just a system column, which is a primary key. You have to find out and identify a particular primary key column from your data set and not from your system columns. That's when people get confused with the data set or choosing the right key and having that to be used all across your models. And that's not a DBA. And the integration management section is when you can actually create the output from your MDS model, as well as run your batches. All the incremental packages that you're running via SSIS package gets kicked over here, and you can read the query headers. If it has failed here, any of the status has gone failed, you can copy query and see the results from there. But create views is something very important in terms of creating a subscription view. As you can see, if I am going to edit one of my existing subscription view, you're selecting the format, which is leaf members, which is nothing but your current row values, and then leaf member history, which is just your historical records, and they're not active at this point. And leaf members SRE type 2, which combines your current row values as well as historical values. So where I was going with this particular implementation in my previous demonstration is that I am creating two reports on top of my current row values as well as SRE type 2, and trying to combine and trying to align these two reports so that I know what data or the CRUD operation was done only by the business users. Because by analyzing something at the subscription view label, you can understand how your business users are interacting with your master data domains. And of course, you can do other visualization on top of your data, which are not coming to the endpoint. But we have found that this analysis has been very helpful in terms of knowing how popular your product is at this point once you have gone live. Version management is nothing but when you're having multiple models, location, product, customer, or anything implemented, and you're trying to archive one of the model because you're no longer using that one. As an example, in our case, we have identified that our product model is not going to work because the healthcare domain has identified that product as one of the victimized product, or one of the product that is identified by the most of the victims in the company. So we are just getting rid of the product domain here. So you can just archive that particular version of the model and then jump into the next one, and that wouldn't hamper any of your ER diagram or your relationship in your Power BI, because you're choosing your Power BI in the source system of subscription view, and that subscription view stays alive even if you are archiving your model. So that's a good thing. In the user group permission, you can it is always advised to create a group first, so that you're giving the admin access to each and everyone who are rolling under that particular AD group. It makes things easier. You don't have to repeat your effort a lot. All right, so we did talk about that joining multiple subscription view. I did not, as I said, my use case, I was not able to grab that from my company, and I'm certainly hoping to reuse that in my next sessions. But if I have to show one report here, I can talk about this a little bit, which is talking about two types of subscription view, as you saw in my demonstration earlier, that one subscription view, which is slowly changing dimension type 2, and one subscription view, which is only current row indicator. So this is what it is talking about when I'm doing a Power BI presentation or creating a visualization on top of these two. I am trying to connect or create a model on top of my subscription view, rather than creating models across the rather than creating the physical data model across the master data model. The terms are always overlapping, so forgive me for that. But I have figured it out that it is always better to create relationship between subscription views, or create a physical data model on top of your subscription view rather than on top of your entities. Alrighty, let's go ahead and talk about choosing the right DBAs. And most of these are very conceptual. You might have heard about the party model. That's a very ADW term. And you're not necessarily talking about stuff like party model and my ER diagram in case of master data services if you're doing an MDS implementation, but talking about DBAs rather than foreign keys, and talking about what is my model. And model is nothing but your domain presentation for a group of data set. So in my case, I have a customer model, I have a product model, I have a vendor model, and where are these data overlapping, and how am I choosing my DBAs? And if you have a product one, make sure you're not creating multiple keys on the top of your code, and do not make product category ID, product subcategory ID, and then product subcategory ID. I'm just being sarcastic here, but you got the point. It just makes things tougher for your downstream system, EDW, or anyone to consume from here, as well as it doesn't make sense in terms of providing a better hierarchy in master data services. Master data services with 2016 feature, you have a derived hierarchy feature. And if you want to create multiple DBA, it just, the derived hierarchy just gets complicated, coming from my personal experience. So as long as you're maintaining just one primary key or one DBA, and you have identified that well enough that you can reuse that across your various models, you are good to go. So again, choosing a right domain-based attribute is good only if you're doing a multi-domain MDM. Your company is at a very early phase and you're trying to do just one product master data management via MDS, don't worry about it. It's always good to design well so that you're being really prognostic, but then again, it is what it is. If your data type is bad, just the development can go easier without having to spend of 2 weeks of time in terms of finding a right DBA, and I have had issues when I have gone to the stage where it is reporting stage ready or providing data to the Power BI or any other reporting platform without having to think about how many DBAs I have or how am I going to do a presentation. As you saw in Power BI itself, you can make the association again. So it's not rework, but it is granular or customization work, whereas you're avoiding tons of amounts of your development work. So you need to know that thin layer of difference between this. Finally, I am heading up to 10 more minutes in the presentation here. I wanted to summarize the need of MDM metrics. Every time we did talk about uh, models or we talked about companies, for my one of the use case that I can give is I had a conversation with Google's HR master data management domain or their team, and then they were trying to implement one of the on top of MDS, and you're trying to know if my HR data is overlapping with my something with my revenue related data or tax related data, which is very generic. These two teams are not super or how am I supposed to put it? That these two teams are not so different in terms of business wise. So in those cases, if you're trying to provide one model, in perfectly fine. But if you have something like location master data and then you have something like product master data, those two attribute sets are not never going to match. So you need to know what kind of metrics are presenting the location master data as well as product master data. And remember, your goal is to minimize the metrics rather than expanding it and leverage the best out of the metrics. So when I talk about associating in a better way in your physical data model, you can definitely do that in your downstream reporting platform as well as any other EDW platform. It is not a biggie. So yes, that's all I had for my master data management metrics. It was a bit of master data services focused, and you had a good look at the MDM web UI. Let me know if you have any questions or how can I help. Miguel, do you
Please.
want to repeat any questions if there is any?
No, there's no any questions in the panel or
Okay.
any chat. Anybody? If not, make sure to stay tuned for our next session. What you need to know about SQL Server and Docker containers with Michael Otte. We're going to be here some minutes. If yeah, there's awesome presentations, said Sri Khan. Thank you, Sri.
Yes. Yeah. I was just looking at my stopwatch. Yeah. So we are leading up to almost about 7 minutes. We are going to wrap this up. I am here online. I just wanted to show the next speaker so that we're leveraging the best out of all. Yeah. So we have What You Need to Know About SQL Server and Docker Containers by Michael Otte. But I'm here online. If you have any questions, please ask away. And my information was provided in the slide that I was in previous. Yeah, follow me on Twitter, ask any questions, share your connections on LinkedIn.
Omar says thanks. Thanks, Omar, to you. Fernando Jacinto has a question here. Do you share PPTX file on pass.org site?
Actually, yes. So the deadline for uploading all of these slides are Friday. So if you go to 24 hours website and check the contents anytime after Friday, you will have the slides up there.
Fernando says, okay, thanks. Thanks to
Perfect.
you. Thanks to you, Fernando. Regards to you, Fernando. There's another question here is, which is your favorite go-to tool?
In terms of MDM solution?
It says Power BI. Yeah, yes, he says yes for a solution. Or
Actually, it depends. I am an unbiased person. So if you want to look into your data size and want to come up with a better visualization as well as a better data quality solution, I would say go for Informatica MDM any day. But then again, if you're looking for something with the data size is small and you want to segregate that across various models, then yeah, definitely go ahead, do a master data services and make sure that you have SQL Server platform already existing in your company so that you can go ahead with MDS. But then again, you're completely non-relational people, then MDS is not your tool. So it depends.